Okay, let's talk about it. The single most powerful sentence in any essay, the thesis statement. Seriously, if you get this right, you've won half the battle, but get it wrong and your whole argument could just crumble. Today, we're going to make sure you get it right every single time.
You know that feeling. That blinking cursor on a blank page, it feels like it's mocking you, right? You've got the topic, the deadline is creeping closer, but the path from A to B is just a complete fog. It's such a paralyzing feeling, and it's where so many great essays go to die before they even start.
And that's because you're missing the foundation. A powerful thesis statement isn't just some random sentence. It's the architectural core of your entire paper. It gives you focus, it gives you direction, and it makes a promise to your reader about the journey you're about to take them on. Without it, you're basically building on sand, and your arguments are going to collapse.
But hey, don't worry. We're about to hand you the blueprints. By the end of this, you'll have the tools you need to construct a killer thesis statement for any topic, piece by piece.
So, Section 1, what is a thesis? Let's think of it as the roadmap for your essay.
At its core, it's a super concise sentence, or maybe two, right at the end of your introduction that clearly states your main point or argument. It basically tells your reader, look, this is my claim, this is why it's a big deal, and here's how I'm going to prove it to you. It just sets the stage for everything else.
You know, to take that metaphor a step further, you can think of the thesis as the actual bones of your paper. It's the skeleton that gives your essay structure. It holds every single paragraph and every piece of evidence together so it all makes sense. Without it, you've just got a shapeless pile of ideas.
All right, moving on to Section 2, the core components. We're calling this the blueprints for a strong foundation. Now that we get the what, let's dig into the how. What are the actual blueprints for a strong thesis? Because you've got to know, not all essays are the same, so not all thesis statements are built the same way.
So you've basically got two main blueprints. First is the analytical thesis. This is what you use when you're breaking down a topic to really understand it better. The formula is pretty simple. What you're analyzing, the specific topic, and the conclusion you come to. Then there's the argumentative thesis. This is your go-to when you're making a specific claim that you have to defend. For that one, the structure is your topic, your big argument, and the evidence you're going to use to prove it.
Both are super useful for sure. But to really show you the nuts and bolts of how this works, we're going to focus our little construction project today on that analytical model.
Okay, let's break this example down. An analysis of, that's part 1 of our formula, the what's analyzed. Then, the big 5 personality traits, that's our specific topic. And finally, indicates conscientiousness is the biggest determiner of success. That is our conclusion. See how those 3 distinct pieces just lock together to form one clear, solid statement?
Okay, Section 3, a real-world challenge. Let's put this blueprint to the test. Theory's one thing, but let's see how this works in practice. We're going to tackle a real-world challenge, analyzing a dense, pretty complex institutional report. You know, the kind of document that makes most students feel totally overwhelmed. So here it is, our source material, an official interim report from St. Augustine College. Just imagine, your professor assigns you to analyze this thing. Your job is to cut through all the jargon and data to find the core message and then boil all that down into a single, powerful analytical thesis. Let's do it.
All right, Section 4, let's build this thing. Assembling the pieces, step by step. It's time to start the construction. Remember our 3-part formula? We're going to find each of those components, what's analyzed, the topic, and the conclusion right inside this report. This is a really straightforward 3-step process. First, we'll figure out what the report is actually analyzing. Then, we'll nail down the specific topic. And finally, we'll pull out the key takeaway, or conclusion. Let's get to it. Step 1. What is being analyzed here? Well, the report is basically a direct reply to 4 big concerns from an accrediting body. So the real core of our analysis isn't just the college itself, but the college's specific response to these concerns. Bam! That's our first piece.
Step 2. What's the topic? This one's easy. It's literally right there on the cover. We're analyzing the St. Augustine College Interim Report, submitted in December of 2020. That's our specific subject. Okay, 2 pieces down, 1 to go. And finally, step 3. What's the conclusion? As we start digging into the report, a pretty clear pattern shows up. Words like assessment, data, and strategic plan just keep popping up over and over. So the big takeaway is that the college's response wasn't just some quick fix. No, they implemented deep, systemic changes, all driven by data, to tackle their core academic and financial problems. And now, let's put the pieces together. We combine
What's analyzed, the college's response, with our topic, that 2020 report, and our conclusion, the data-driven systemic changes. And what do we get? A powerful and precise thesis statement. It clearly lays out the scope and the main finding of our analysis. See how perfectly all three components just lock into place?
Okay, last section, number 5, the final quality check. We need to find out, does your thesis hold up? We're not quite done. You know, no construction project is finished without a final quality inspection. We've got to stress test our thesis to make sure it's built to last. And remember, this is a check you can do over and over as your essay develops and your ideas get sharper.
So here's a simple but really powerful quality checklist you can use for any thesis. First, is it specific enough? Second, is it debatable? Like, could a reasonable person actually disagree with your take? Third, does it pass the so what test? In other words, why should anyone even care? And finally, does it really get at the how and why of your topic? So let's run our new thesis through that checklist. Is it specific? Yep. It nails down the 2020 report and the data-driven response. Is it arguable? Absolutely. Someone could easily argue the response was just for show. Does it matter? Yeah, it does, because it's about the college's accreditation. And does it explain the what and why? Yes, it lays out exactly what the college's actions were. Our thesis is officially a solid, well-built structure.
So there you have it, the blueprint, the materials, and the final inspection. You now have a totally reliable toolkit for building a strong foundation for any essay you write. That blank page, it's no longer a barrier, it's an opportunity. So the only question left is, with this new roadmap in your hand, where are you going to lead your reader?